Great. Am I mic'd up? Is that going? Morning, everyone. Knowing that I had the morning slot, I've made this hopefully a fun presentation for y'all. I'm Tripp Hughes. I've been with Organic Valley for about 20 years. I kind of grew up there. We started back about 31 years ago as a farmer-owned cooperative. The images that I'll show, these are our farms, these are our farmers. We're owned by about 2,000 family farms across the U.S. They are the owners. We report to them. Our board of directors may have milked cows in the morning and come to the board meeting during the day. We're primarily focused on dairy, but we also have some other what we call pools or areas that we focus in. We've got eggs, we've got feed that we grow, we've got meat, and there's a connection to that. And it's really, we've always described ourselves as a social mission disguised as a business. And what we've always said is that in order for our social mission, keeping family farms going, keeping organic acreage growing in the U.S., in order for that to survive, we need to survive as a business. We need to be viable. We need to be motivating and relevant with our audience. Probably about 50% of our sales are going to our Organic Valley brand. Crop is our parent company. It's the co-op of regional organic producers. We also do private label, manufacturing. So if you've had other private label and organic products out there with dairy in them, you could have been part of our. One of our big elements, though, is we're only organic. That's all we do. We believe that that really matters to the environment, to the animals, and to the consumers at the end of the day. And it is something that set us apart. From day one, we were telling our story about how we're farmer-owned and we're organic, and we believed that was as good as it got. But as we grew and as the market evolved, and here we are 30 years later, and you can walk into the Save Mart in Truckee and you can find organic products, just organic and farmer-owned wasn't enough. And I'll talk about that evolution. I have great respect for the other companies that work with farmers. Land O'Lakes. It's keeping families on the farms is super important to us. What we do is we do a very specific niche of that. So what we found over the years is that we're really good at building connections through video. And we've got, if you go to our YouTube page, and I encourage you to do it, we've got hundreds of these emotional, glorious morning shots with cows coming out on pasture. And we would social media the heck out of those, and we'd try to get them to go viral. And the reality was, it may be entertaining, it may be connecting people to our brand, it may be keeping people engaged with our brand, but it wasn't driving our sales up. It was keeping things steady, and we needed to rethink that. I love this stat. One of my, we have a full-time team of 3 videographers, and one of them calculated that people spent 59 years last year watching Organic Valley videos on YouTube. That's kind of scary. So what I'm going to do is share some of this engagement. What we realized was the marketplace was getting really crowded in other companies, and no offense to the companies in the room, telling the farmer story. And we're like, well, you know what, we've always done that, but the consumers are actually talking to us about more. Farmers still super important. It'll always be a part of what we do, but we need to break out of that boundary. So the first thing we did was probably about 5 years ago is we set this goal. Let's create these videos that will go viral. Let's knock it out of the park. I'm not going to show you one of our most viral ones because it's a little controversial in the Me Too day, but it's called Save the Bros, and if you have a chance, go check it out. It was funny then. Some of you may still find it funny now, but we don't push it. But I am going to share with you some of the other ones that we've done. So this one's fantastic. We worked with our agency, and we said, look, we're farmers. We're on the farms. Let's get into our consumers' world. So we spent a couple of months surveying. We talked to about 1,200 busy women about their mornings. And we used those insights to drive this ad. So I'll share it with you now.
Like most women in commercials, I love to start each day doing yoga in my underwear.
Or journaling in my journaling nook. and eating a wholesome, farm-fresh breakfast with a tiny spoon that I bought from a company that gives tiny spoons to underprivileged children.
Huh. According to science, most professional women don't have time for any of that.
Not that we need research to prove it, but there's research to prove it.
57% of us are up before the sun is up.
21% of us check our work email before even getting out of bed.
What?
Let's go get that morning meeting.
9% of women cite dry shampoo as one of the greatest inventions of the 20th century.
I'm done.
33% of us never make our bed. Like, ever.
21% of us have used an article of clothing to camouflage a stain. Very nice.
Only 16% of women would describe their morning with the hashtag blessed. And that seems kind of high.
58% of women will swear at someone or something this morning. Oh,
You know what 100% of us do have time for? A real-life Pinterest board?
Fermenting your own small batch kombucha?
Propose?
No, an organic breakfast in a bottle.
That's why we created Organic Balance,
Propose.
a nutritious organic breakfast with 16 grams of protein and half the day's calcium, so you can seize the cray. Find out what real women's mornings are really like at realmorningreport.com.
So that video went viral. You know, it took off. We tried a lot of different target audiences. A couple of them it really hit into. It shared, we pushed. It shared, we pushed. And so we got that video view up over 10 million, which was exciting for us. But again, it didn't move the sales for this product. You know, it helped, but it wasn't what we needed to break through and drive through. I'll share one more kind of fun one with you. This is one of our best-selling products. And again, this is us combining a little bit about who we are with what the consumer's interested in.
I guess you could say I'm a purist. If you want a quality product, you have to source the best ingredients out there.
And this is one of our
Great coffee
farmers.
isn't just made, it's milked. My name is Garrett Van Tol. I'm an Organic Valley dairy farmer, but my real passion is coffee. If you want to be taken seriously in the coffee world, you need a tiny storefront in a hip neighborhood in New York City. I just saw a girl carrying a ukulele. Welcome to the Organic Valley Coffee Shop. You can order organic half and half in 3 sizes. A little bit, a double, or a lotta. Then you just have to add the coffee. It's over there. We're gonna need one of those modern logos with an X in it, or some arrows that says when you were established. I got a bunch of them here. This one seems very hip. The secret to a great cup of coffee is our pasture-raised cows. Hey, Molly, you gonna make me a good cup of coffee? Cows love grass, and we got a great blend for them. We have Matua prairie grass, comes from Argentina, and ryegrass from New Zealand. There's a real grassiness to it. Hey, foodies, it doesn't get any more local than that. She's like my secret barista.
Got a double for Gina?
We'll do double.
I'll buy 3 half and halves.
Lana for Fred?
A little.
I think.
Let's try double.
Double coming up.
It's a nice meal.
There it is. Organic Valley happens to be the world's best coffee company. We just don't make coffee.
So this was some insight-driven work that the
Hipsters
agency
in New
brought
York
to us.
City love you, girls. Yeah, I agree.
So this was a merging of our world, something we had done forever, which was work with our farmers, and something that we needed to do was really get into the lives of our consumers and be relevant. Garrett had never been to New York City before we opened the coffee shop with him. We did it for a few days. He had a blast. We had a blast. Consumers were a little confused, but it was fun. So again, this is this evolution. This we tried to take viral. It didn't go viral. but we knew it had a good message. We actually have a 15 and a 30-second cut of this. And so we took it out and we pushed it programmatically and through a few other channels, and we started to get some momentum, and maybe we were starting to turn the scales with it. We decided, though, we needed to go bigger. And so I worked with our CFO, our media agency, my boss, the chief marketing, and we went to our board and we said, hey, you know what? It's time for the farmers to dig into the pockets a little bit. We know it's a tough time, but we know we've got a story that's authentic. We know we've got a story that resonates with folks. Let's go out and do it. And so last time I talked, I didn't share too many metrics, so Steve asked me to bring some in. You know, we had this goal of hitting 90% of our target audience in the US. This is a big goal. We've got 60 million plus that we're thinking about out there reaching. And our goal really was to make sure we were moving these brand health measures all the way down the funnel so that at the end of the day, we saw velocity increase. We saw new household penetration. And we were able to drive our purchase intent up by 155% through this concentrated campaign. What we did, though, is, again, we decided that we needed to position ourselves as a truly different food company, not just showing farmer videos, but getting out there and making a statement, making a difference. And so this is a campaign that we call Us Crazy. The first video I'll show is one of our top performing videos. It's called Fitbit Cows. And the second video is this long form. And what I'll talk about is through our targeting, through our retargeting, through our work with our media agency, by the time people found and got to our long form video on YouTube, many millions, we had a 90% completion rate on a 2.5-minute video. So let me get into it and share these two with you.
Some food companies put smiling cows and green pastures on their packaging, even if they're actually kept in confinement. Not cool. But at Organic Valley, we put smiling cows in our fields, where they belong. And to prove it, we put these fitness trackers on our cows, so you can actually count the steps they take in our green pastures. Turns out they take more steps than most people. Looking good, ladies. Letting cows be cows. Call us crazy, but it's working. Organic Valley.
So again, it was trying to find this mix, this blend between who we are and what our consumers are interested in thinking about and locating. So this next one then is, if you've been primed, if you've come into our world, we're going to share with you this longer form. And again, the success rate of a 90% completion on this is crazy. Everyone in this is real. This is Jerome. We call him the Wizard. He is one of our founding employees. He was the visionary who decided our co-op was going to be different than other co-ops. And I'll let it speak for itself.
This is the crazy story of what happens when a bunch of idealistic farmers decide to start a company. It's the story of Organic Valley. You've probably heard of it, but maybe not. As far as names go, it's pretty boring and easy to forget. And that's how beauty shots are made.
I came up with the word Organic Valley. I said, this is easy, people can understand it, it's really not that creative.
We're not a very sophisticated bunch.
Yep, somehow this company with a forgettable name that was started by just 7 organic farmers.
I'm one of the founding farmers for Organic Valley.
In the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, has lasted for 30 years. And today they deliver ridiculously fresh organic milk, eggs, cheese, butter, and cream to families all around the country. But wait, let's back up. This whole thing got started because of this guy.
Okay.
Back in 1988, George was a long-haired, shoeless hippie farmer. He and his farmer buddies were sick of the way food was being grown with toxic pesticides and how farmers were being treated. And he was saying radical stuff like,
the conventional food that you buy in the store is food raised in a manner that's harmful to the earth.
That's pretty wacky.
Georgie is stubborn, but he's also a very reasonable person.
So George and 6 neighbor farmers decided to start an organic cooperative, which meant the farmers would own and run the company and make food that's better. For you, the animals, the land, and your taste buds.
Yeah, that's a real important thing.
Let's just say in those early days, it was kind of like the Wild West in organics, or the Wild Midwest, we should say.
I was the first chief financial officer, although we didn't call me that.
We did not have any money.
All of us made $5 an hour.
It was day-to-day living.
A couple of years later, some of us went up to $7.
We were never worried about success, we were worried about trying.
Since then, Organic Valley has grown a lot. Over 2,000 small family farmers have joined the cooperative, and all they do is make organic food, the way they would if they owned the company, which they do. Which means no hormones, no GMOs, no antibiotics, and no toxic pesticides. And animals get lots and lots of time out on pasture. Crazy, right? And remember that young, idealistic farmer, George? Well, he's still a long-haired, shoeless farmer.
I got a reputation to maintain.
But now he's also the CEO, who drives a hybrid car to work. Because that's what happens when a bunch of farmers own the company.
The theme is let's do it our way.
So if you're a person living on planet Earth who sometimes eats food, here's why you should care about this story.
We cannot afford to be degrading our land any longer.
Small family farms are much more invested in the health of the soil, the health of the animals, the health of the people. It's much more intimate.
Organic Valley is all about promoting that care and supporting that.
Yep, a food company that's owned and run by a bunch of organic farmers. Call us crazy, but it's working. Organic Valley.
So that was our prime campaign. We're running it now. It's performing pretty darn well. I'll share some of the success measures with you. And we really think it's hitting that right spot where it's telling our story for sure, but it's also connecting with relevance into the consumers in their food world and the choices they're making, especially young moms as they're out there making choices for the first time. You know, we have this saying, hey, it may be too late to save me, but I'm going to do anything I can for my kids. And I think that's pretty relevant. News is it's not too late to save all of you either. So there's some good information out there about that. So what we did is said, okay, so how do we support this with the videos that we're constantly making? We've got farmers out there with cameras. They're constantly sending us fun content. We've got our editing team in-house. They're going out on farm. They're reviewing the farmer stuff. And every once in a while, we get a winner. So I'm not going to name names, but there was a dairy company recently. They took a big hit for some of their animal abuse that happened. And that's an unfortunate thing for all of us. That's a terrible thing to happen to farmers. It's a terrible thing to happen to the dairy industry. And I can't guarantee it wouldn't happen on one of my 2,000 farms with somebody having a bad day. But the reality is we take a lot of precaution. We take a lot of measures to try to make sure it doesn't happen. It's not a norm for us. This is a norm for us. And so we wanted to share during that period of kind of doom and gloom in the dairy industry, we wanted to share a little bit of a bright spot. And the reality is this could be my farm, this could be one of Brandon's farms, but this is, we believe, how dairy could be. So this started out as a social media post. It got enough play that we re-edited it and brought it into actually being a 15-second spot that we've brought out into some of our larger format media. This is Rosie.
Hey, Rosie. Go play.
At Organic Valley, we think animals deserve to spend their days outside on organic pastures. Call us crazy, but it's working. Organic Valley.
So again, it was something where we're trying to make sure that we're constantly staying relevant, paying attention to what's happening in the marketplace. Somebody asked in the roundtable the other day, what's your strategy for preparedness when things go bad for you or for your marketplace? And we tend to turn to our own stuff and try to figure out that story. We tend to try to stay positive even when it's a negative kind of environment out there. So that was my high-level storytelling. Now I'll talk a little bit about what we did. So it wasn't just media, but media drove it. We know that through awareness, we were driving both our retention of the high-value consumers we wanted to stay with the brand. We actually got some Tripp increases, which was fantastic. We also found that we were able to recruit new families at a time when the dairy industry as itself is contracting. But we did that not just through the videos. We had integration. All of our touch points were working together to get back to talking about the high-quality dairy that Organic Valley delivers. And this is an eye chart, but I figured if folks were going to be getting a leap behind, they could get it. It's confidential, internal use only, right? But I did vet it that I could. These are numbers that are okay to share. So we got out there. We reached about 96% of our 61 million target, and we hit them a bunch of times. And that was the first time we were able to do that. When we were viral, we'd hit them once, they'd share it. Maybe they'd watch it twice, they'd share it. And that was not enough to change consumer mindset. And what was even more important was our media agency, who came to us originally saying, video's dead, or TV's dead, we're gonna do this all through programmatic, we're gonna kill it, social, it's hot. And our media agency is a fantastic agency. This is a few years ago. They said, but we're gonna have TV in here and we're gonna do a market mix model and we're gonna see how things work. So we did, as I mentioned, we saw some really great increases across our brand health metrics. We have always been the #2 player in the dairy set. We were actually able to surpass or come close to our behemoth competitors on a lot of these measures, and that was super exciting for us, super exciting for the board as well. But this is where I really got excited, and this is kind of something that shocked our agency. TV actually drove a large part of what we were doing, and in part it had to do with this fact that probably we're a broad set dairy company, so we've got products in multiple categories. We're in high penetration categories, so we've got households dairy, 98% range. And TD was talking about the purchase frequency. We're high frequency. Dairy's often getting purchased 2 times a week in most households. And so those components, plus our distribution capacity, really made TV take off for us in a powerful way. And it's performing well on Hulu, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Programmatic, we're going back to the agency and we're going, guys, what's going on here? We know that our targets are working because we're working with them through Facebook, through YouTube, but the programmatic, our piece, we certainly have some work to do. We do think that there's potential that we didn't have the right creative in the right place, and that's something we're gonna go back and explore. But overall, it's been a great learning journey. We're about to meet with our agency partners again in a couple weeks here and get ready for round 2 next year. But I appreciate the opportunity to share, and I think I might have time for a question.
Do. Tripp, that was great. Thank you so much. And your farmer did actually see a woman with a ukulele in New York.
Oh, yeah.
You were grabbing real shots from him responding to New York.
What I love, our creative agency is Human out of Chattanooga, and they overshoot everything, and then they go edit it all together. So, yeah, that was real. That was unscripted.
We have time for questions. Yeah, hang on. Go ahead.
Great presentation, thank you. And we have similar industries. We're well, the same industry and similar business models. So I'm interested in knowing, you mentioned that you reached 61 million users 15 times, I think. So what methodology do you use to know that those were actually unique users and not the impressions based on frequency instead of reach of unique users?
You're asking a great question. I can't answer that in detail. But working with our media partners, first of all, most of the broad reach is coming through TV, right? And so I'm not able to tell you that I got unique users on the TV, right? So we're using metrics from TV, we're using metrics from cable, we're using metrics from Hulu, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and compiling those all together. So I don't think that perfectly answers your question, and the answer is, do I know I exactly got unique on 61? No.
And then the next question that is linked to that one is, what is your target demographic? So that makes you think that is 61 million.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we're talking to a group that we call the conscientious consumers. And so these are folks who care about where their food comes from, how it's raised, what they put into their bodies. They're interested in what they're serving to their family and friends. And so it's a group kind of between the organic parents group and these other folks who are just, they read the label, you know? They want to know where that food came from.
That's how I keep my girlish figure.
That's right. I love the fact that you elevated your let's just say, quote unquote, executive team in that longer video.
Yeah.
Did you find, was that really deliberate, especially considering that that the industry was under pressure from perhaps some bad players in the place? Because when you look at the Wizard, you're like, there's no way that guy's gonna screw you over, right?
Yeah.
Or your founder,
or George, yeah.
Right, and so was that a conscious decision of like, we got to get these guys in front of the camera because they transcend. What am I trying to say? Culpability or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, good question. So it probably wasn't conscious in that regard. It actually grew out of an initial concept was we're bad at business, but it's working. And the reality is from day one, our farmers, our business model has been told, no way you guys can farm organically. That can't happen. You can't feed the world, you can't support. And we've constantly proved that wrong. And we get great yields. We have great diversity in extreme weather. So moving into the business model, we've always had this philosophy of being the underdog, of doing things a little bit differently, of people constantly telling us, you guys are crazy the way you do that. And so part of this bad at business was, hey, the farmers actually run this company, not the CEO. It's kind of the other way around. I mean, the CEO is obviously running the business, right? And so that was more of the context of this isn't business as usual. Some of our other videos that are part of this feature kind of the boardroom where the executives are making decisions and laughing as the graphs go up, right? So do you want your food made by that kind of a company or do you want your food made by that kind of a company? That's what we were going for. So maybe kind of what you're saying, but not exactly.
Were you in moving towards the final strategy, excuse me, were you shifting money towards overall branding or because some of the earlier pieces were really more product specific?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question and one we struggle with. Overall branding for sure. We realized we had an opportunity to move much more dynamically as a brand and then bring in certain components. And as we come down the funnel, as we get into YouTube, as we get into some of the social channels, as hopefully we can do with programmatic, we can get much more customized at talking about kind of what we call our lower funnel products. So talk about ghee down there, talk about half and half down there, but up top to be a little bit more hero.
And what did you learn about, or sort of reflect a little bit on what you learned about social virality, where it does work, what it takes to make it move the needle in the end? Because you started out where you had great viral success that simply wasn't doing anything for you. But ultimately you were able to get some viral traction that did do something for you. What was the difference?
I mean, I think there are times when virals, if you can, first of all, asking an agency to do viral after viral is impossible, right? So, but if you can work to this place where you're staying fresh, where you're staying innovative, where you're staying relevant, whether it's in viral work or whether it's in your day-to-day work, I think that's the space that we were trying to go to. And so if something happens to take off viral now, great. It's not going to be our primary goal. We want to make sure we're communicating the core values. But at the same time, we're creating a lot of content. And every once in a while, like that Rosie video is going to take off.
Hi,
Hi,
I'm Uli. Yeah, with Pomois. I personally love that you are expanding the story from the farmer into other aspects because my 35-year-old daughter, who's now becoming a mom, really cares about everything. And, it's much more involved in organic farming. Like as an example, that amount of land where you don't put fertilizers and pesticides into it. August is American or International World Quality Month to awareness that the water quality has so decreased, and that's why nobody drinks from a faucet any longer. But it's really because of the fertilizers and pesticides that go into the land, and I think you have contributed. It's not as bad as it could have been if you wouldn't made a change 35 years ago. So I think there's so many angles where you can start educating about how organic farming makes a difference, not just healthy cows and not abusing animals and, supporting farmers. There's so many stories. I wonder, how did the coffee story work out compared to the cow stories?
Actually, the coffee story itself performed pretty well once we got it going.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, I think it's that mix of a story. We have acres and acres of material on our website that goes super deep if you want to go. But the reality is we need to get folks into that conversation first.
Yeah, I think to make it part of what you put into something, the ingredient, make it better, I think that's a lot of things how, you know, people learn too about the product.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Hey, Tripp.
Hey,
Dane
Dane.
here. Great presentation. Well, first of all, great presentation from everybody. This is the first time I've been talking. Great job. Question for you. Obviously, dairy is the primary product that you guys are working with cheese and milk, half and half, all that. Would you ever, because you are set up on a organic platform, get into more of a meat business, like with chicken and then beef? Is that something on the horizon, or is that not what you're looking to in the future?
No, you're asking a great question. The reality is we do have a meat company. It's a wholly owned subsidiary. It's called the Organic Meat Company. Our branding on it needs work. We've got two primary brands that we run. One is called Organic Prairie, and the other one is called Mighty. And Mighty Organic is basically some jerky, some great beef sticks, some meat bars. The reality is we think we need to bring that in a little bit closer to Organic Valley so that the consumers can make that connection. Originally, they were set up separately due to governmental regulations and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the reality is at the end of the day, our farmers need to be able to sell the cows once they're past a milking age. Our milking age extends usually pretty long, so that's fantastic. But the cows will move into meat, right? And so to have a continued market we now own a couple of plants, and we work on the mantra for that meat company of one bad day, right? They live a great life, and they serve this greater purpose for us.
Thank you. Hi, Parisha from Smith Design.
Hi, Parisha.
Hi. So, you know, we've been doing a lot of research on Gen Zers and millennials, and they talk a lot about how they're, you know, like, they have really high BS meters, you know, they're extremely conscious when they're making, you know, the decisions about brands that they're going to be loyal to, or just generally making purchases. You know, what did the brand or, you know, the media agency sort of see in terms of response from like the younger people? I mean, they're not necessarily able or even making those purchases quite yet, but, you know, you're kind of planting the seed, right? So, you know, and, you know, being that your target demographic is conscientious consumers?
Conscientious, but yeah.
Yeah. You know, did you guys sort of like get a vibe that, you know, they were, you know, impacted in some way, or, you know, you're sort of planting the seed? Yeah, just kind of curious about, you know, the response from them in general from your content.
Yeah, I mean, so millennials, Gen Zs as a whole have more attention to where food comes from, have a much higher BS level. So we purposely work with a creative team that's in that mindset, and we purposely are trying to not take ourselves too seriously. And when we took ourselves too seriously, we've got a lot of serious videos out there, and you're welcome to watch them, but that's not going to be the breakthrough video. It's not going to be the one that we're necessarily going to greet you with. But you may encounter it, and that may be the one that resonates with you. So we do have kind of a broad scope of the different emotions we're looking to tweak to bring people in. But we know that BS factor is huge, right? And so that's part of why, you know, they said, well, get Jerome and George on the camera and break that BS factor down a little bit. Now, the reality is a lot of people are going to look at that and not believe that's our founding CEO and our founding CFO, right? But they are, yeah.
Well, Tripp, next time, bring the wizard with you.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah.
love to meet him.
Well,